Her son screamed, "Mom!" And what she did shocked the entire neighborhood. It was just another Saturday in Ohio, the kind of day that slips by without being remembered. A gray, overcast sky hung low above the town of Asheville, and the wind moved slowly through the bare trees, stirring nothing more than a few old leaves along the sidewalk. Inside a modest one-story house at the end of Cedar Street, the Miller family lived a life as quiet and ordinary as the weather. In the garage, Dave Miller lay on his back beneath the family's aging blue sedan. The concrete was cold against his shoulders, but he barely noticed. He was in his element, sleeves rolled up, socket wrench in hand, explaining the difference between a bolt and a nut to his 7-year-old son, Ethan. Ethan knelt beside him, holding the flashlight with both hands like it was something precious. His cheeks were smudged with grease, his eyes filled with pride and curiosity. Every time Dave spoke, Ethan nodded like it was gospel. "Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey," Dave said with a grin. "Righty-tighty," Ethan echoed, giggling as he adjusted the light. It was one of those father and son moments that didn't look like much from the outside, but meant everything from the inside. Just 20 feet away, inside the house, Rachel stood folding laundry at the edge of the bed. She wasn't thinking about anything special, just the rhythm of the day. T-shirts, towels, socks. She folded each item with the practiced motion of a mother who'd done this 1,000 times before. In the background, she could hear her boys laughing in the garage, their voices muffled but familiar. She smiled to herself. This was what happiness looked like in her world. Oil on Dave's jeans, Ethan's giggles bouncing off the garage walls, and the soft clatter of a laundry basket filling up at the end of a long week. Then it happened. A loud, metallic crack. Not like something falling, not like something breaking. It was the kind of sound that made the air shift. Final, violent, sharp. Then silence for half a second. And then, "Mom!" The scream tore through the walls and into her bones. Rachel dropped the shirt in her hands. It fell in slow motion. Her body was already moving, legs flying through the hallway, arms pumping through the kitchen. She burst through the back door like a storm, barefoot, breathless. When she reached the garage, she stopped so suddenly her knees nearly gave out. The car had collapsed, the jack had snapped, and her son, her baby, was under it. The sight didn't register all at once. Her eyes took in pieces: the shattered jack, the twisted wrench, the small blue flashlight rolling across the floor, still glowing weakly. And then she saw them. Ethan's sneakers, barely visible beneath the front bumper. One was slightly turned to the side. He wasn't moving. "No, no, no, no!" Rachel ran forward, falling to her knees on the concrete. Her palms scraped the floor as she reached for him, her voice cracking open. "Ethan! Ethan!" No answer. That was when she screamed. Not a scream of fear, but one of pure, soul-torn anguish. A cry that echoed through the garage, through her body, through the sky above her. "God, give me strength. Don't let him die. Not my baby. Not today." Time froze. Rachel's hands went to the car without thinking. Her fingers curled beneath the front edge of the bumper. She knew it was impossible, knew that what she was about to try defied every law of muscle and matter. But in that moment, she didn't care. Her heart was no longer beating in her chest. It was under that car, and if there was breath left in her lungs, she was going to fight for it. Her feet dug into the floor. Her arms trembled violently. Her teeth clenched so tight, her jaw screamed. Her scream became a growl, then a cry, then something not quite human. And then, impossibly, incredibly, the car moved. She lifted. Not far, not long, just enough, just long enough. In that impossible space of seconds, Dave burst back into the garage, having heard the noise, and dropped the wrench he'd gone to retrieve. He froze. His wife, 5'4", barely over 100 pounds, was holding up the front end of the car. Her face was red, her arms shaking, veins raised in her neck and forehead, but her eyes weren't hers anymore. They were wide and clear and full of something else, something holy. Dave didn't hesitate. He dropped to the floor, reached under the car and pulled Ethan out by the arms. The moment he was clear, Rachel collapsed. The car slammed back down with a metallic thud that rang like thunder in the confined garage. Rachel crawled to her son. He was coughing, gasping, and then he began to cry. So did she. She wrapped her arms around him and rocked him like she had when he was just a baby. Her face was soaked with tears. She whispered over and over, "Thank you, God. Thank you, thank you." Dave knelt beside them, his hand on Ethan's back, his eyes locked on Rachel. Neither of them could believe what had just happened. By the time the neighbors arrived, the paramedics were on their way. Someone brought a blanket. Someone else tried to ask questions, but no one could speak much. They had all seen something that didn't make sense. Doctors would later confirm that Ethan had no broken bones, just bruises. A miracle, they said, a medical mystery. But the people who saw it happen that day didn't need a textbook explanation. Rachel Miller had lifted a car to save her son, and though no one could say exactly how she did it, they all agreed on one thing. She wasn't alone in that garage. The doctors couldn't explain it. Ethan had been under the full weight of a car for almost 20 seconds, and yet no broken bones, just bruises on his ribs, a cut on his forehead, and a wild, frightened look in his eyes that faded with each passing day. But Rachel didn't heal as quickly. The bruises on her son faded. Her own never did. Not the ones on her body. There were none. But the ones that settled deep inside her chest, where fear had carved out a hollow place and left questions echoing in the dark. Everyone kept calling her a hero. The neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, brought over barbecue ribs and said, "Rachel, I still can't believe it. You lifted a car. You're like Superwoman." The pastor left a voicemail offering prayer and a mention in next Sunday's sermon. Even the local news showed up for an interview. She declined gently, hiding behind the kitchen curtain as they waited outside with cameras. She didn't want to be on TV. She just wanted to sleep without waking up drenched in sweat, hearing the sound of metal collapsing over and over again in her dreams. Some nights, she walked down the hall 5 or 6 times just to peek into Ethan's room and make sure he was still breathing. She'd stand in the doorway, arms crossed over her chest, watching his tiny chest rise and fall. Other nights, she'd go sit in the garage, in silence. The concrete was cold, the air smelled like oil and dust and rust. The broken jack still lay in the corner, its metal arm bent at an unnatural angle. She hadn't had the heart to throw it away. She'd sit on the floor, knees pulled to her chest, and stare at the place where Ethan had lain, where she had knelt, where everything she thought she knew about the world had come undone. That's where Dave found her one evening after Ethan had gone to bed. He didn't say anything at first. He just sat beside her, legs stretched out, his arm brushing hers. After a long silence, Rachel spoke. "I can't stop thinking about it." "I know," he said. "I felt something in me that day, like fire, like I wasn't even inside my body anymore. It was me, but it wasn't." Dave nodded. "I saw your face. You weren't just lifting a car, you were being held." Her eyes filled slowly. "Do you really think it was him?" she whispered. "That God, that he stepped in?" Dave didn't hesitate. "I don't just think it, I know it." Rachel looked down at her hands, pale, ordinary, trembling just slightly. "I keep thinking, what if I hadn't gotten there in time? What if I couldn't do it?" "But you did," he said, "and not because you were strong, because you believed, you cried out, and he answered." That was the first night Rachel cried, not from fear, not from shock, but from release. She buried her face in Dave's chest and wept as he wrapped his arms around her, and for the first time in weeks, she felt something leave her, the weight she hadn't been able to name. She was being carried, even now. In the weeks that followed, something softened in her. The fear didn't disappear, but it changed shape. It became reverence, awe, a kind of quiet trust she hadn't felt in years. She started talking to God again. Not in grand, eloquent prayers, just little things. "Thank you. Be with him. I'm scared. "I'm listening." And every time she felt the silence answer, not with words, but with peace. 3 months later, Pastor James invited her to speak at the Sunday evening service. It was a small church, white wood, creaky pews, maybe 50 people in attendance. Still, Rachel almost said no, but something in her told her to go. That night, she stood in front of her neighbors, some who had been there the day it happened, others who had only heard whispers, and looked down at the floor for a long time before speaking. "I'm not here to tell you how strong I am," she began, her voice soft but steady, "because I'm not. I was scared. I was desperate. I was just a mom who couldn't lose her son." She looked up, and I didn't save Ethan that day. I just held on while something bigger than me did. The sanctuary was silent. I lifted a car, but I didn't lift it alone. God was in that garage. I felt him. I know he was there, not just helping me, but carrying me. She paused, searching the crowd, until she found Ethan, sitting in the front row beside Dave, swinging his legs, grinning like this was the best thing that had ever happened to him. Rachel smiled through tears. "Maybe your moment won't be as loud as mine. Maybe it won't involve steel and screams and sirens. But I promise you, when the weight of the world falls on you and you think you can't lift another inch, cry out. Even if you don't have words, just cry out." Her voice cracked then, but she didn't stop. Because the miracle isn't always in what gets lifted. Sometimes the miracle is in what carries you. After the service, a line formed to speak with her. A young mother said she'd been struggling with depression and hadn't prayed in years. A widower confessed he'd stopped believing after his wife died, but felt something stir for the first time that night. Even the pastor had tears in his eyes as he hugged her. Later, back at home, Rachel tucked Ethan into bed. As she reached for the light, he stopped her. "Mom," he whispered. "Yeah, baby?" "I don't remember much about the car, but I remember seeing light under it, like a really bright light." Rachel didn't answer right away. Her throat tightened. She kissed his forehead. "I saw it too." Then she turned off the lamp and walked quietly back into the hallway, her heart full and light, as if someone else was still holding it for her. The garage is still there, the car too, and that old flashlight, though it doesn't always work, sits on a shelf like a silent witness to the day everything changed. And if you ever ask Rachel Miller what really happened that Saturday in Ohio, she won't give you a science lesson. She won't quote a Bible verse. She won't make it dramatic. She'll just smile and say, "I wasn't alone in that garage." And neither are you. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel. We share true and powerful stories of faith like this one every week. Because no matter what you're facing, you are never alone. Not in the silence, not in the struggle, not even in the garage.